I'm live. You're live if you're here. Nice to see you, one and all, even if it's only one or two. Uh, hey, good to see you. Remind me your real name so I can get it right. I know it starts with an R, and this is for MSZUC, that whole name. Just remind me your name. And let me know if you can hear me. I'm hoping you can. Oh, good. And you can even see me. Rob. Thank you, Rob. Rob from Cleveland. Um, all right. It's been a wonderful full week of thoughts. I often title these lives arbitrarily. I'm not what because of my middle age spread, and now I'm past middle age. But my middle age spread from the origins of life to Trump or to absolutism. So, but this week I did call it word wielding, and I can start with that, and I will drop whatever I'm talking about almost on a dime to deal with anything that you want to bring up. Okay, so I talked about us as word wielding, and this week I wielded one word, paradise. I wanted to look up the etymology of it. Where does that word come from? It originally meant walled around, which is just wonderful. It's basically uh, it was quickly associated with the Garden of Eden, but the idea that you can have paradise, but only if you enclose it. And that's one of the things we can do with words. We can enclose our um, worldview. So we know everything as and everything that we don't know is beyond the walls. It's on the other side of the walls, and therefore we don't need to know about them. Yes, it's protected. And yeah, so last night I was taking a long walk and um, realized how exquisite the biblical story is in its lunatic way. The Garden of Eden, the fall from grace was falling up. I'll say more about that. I have a video coming out on it today. Falling up into words, which makes all walls crossable. That so anybody can live within a bubble, and all of us do to one extent or another. I'll talk about that a bit. Um, but but this is related to what I call the last word paradox, which is that words make us crave last words that further words make impossible. So we crave last words by squaring off the world or walling off the world, and then someone else can cross the wall with other words. So this is one of the challenges we deal with. Let's see. Hey, Michael, good to see you here. Um, yeah, so that's really interesting to me. In the beginning of humans was the word. The, the, the Bible puts that on God. God has the last word, but that's a word wielding move that we make. Hey, Niels, good to see you here. Yeah, so that stuff's all fascinating to me. I'm trying to because remember what I'm doing. Even if civilization is going down, even if humanity or humankind is going down, I want to do my best job possible, my most careful job possible to understand what we are. And I'm lucky in that I get to do that because I live a relatively safe life. Um, I'm going to die. Everybody is. But for example, last night I had a dream in which me and some young folk captured Trump and took him to the back of a big box store, like a Best Buy or a Costco or something. And I was asking him questions. I wish I remember the questions I asked him. And then he slipped our container and ran off. And so I woke up anxious. I don't remember his answers, but I do remember asking him basically, "What's up?" Which is the name of my book. What's up with assholes? I think about this stuff a lot. I can't remember the last time I had a dream. All of my nighttime narratives are dream mares. There's always some positive and there's always some anxiety. Even the dreams in which I'm young again and falling in love, or someone is beckoning to me to fall in love, there's anxiety. And I was thinking about why I find those dream mares so delicious is that I wake up into this relatively safe life. Um, so I don't wake up into a nightmare. I imagine that dreams would be a relief from a nightmare life. I don't have that situation. There's 2 creation stories in Genesis. God had to do it twice to make sure he got it right. Truth is kryptonite to taco. I'll say this about it. I think truth is a dangerous and complicated word. Remember, my PhD's in epistemology, which is basically how do you know what's true? But I don't think that that's actually even possible. I can only talk about speculations and honesty. I don't think we ever have complete access to the truth. No one does, which is why even though I went to a grad school program, I got a master's in public policy from a program whose theme was speak truth to power. I don't buy that. I find that pretentious. I can speak honesty to power. What is kryptonite to Trump is introspection. This is what you get when you declare holy war, as he has, which is, oh, hell no, this is holy war. From now on, if anybody's going to introspect, it's anybody but me. Introspection is the kryptonite for Trump and his people. And I find this just fascinating, and I spend a lot of time studying it and exploring it. For example, this morning I had another conversation with one of my Trump supporting friends. I had a 2.5-hour conversation the other day with one. Lovely people, really committed to this. Very difficult, very painful to second guess themselves. They're doing what I call second guessing, which is they'll ask a question like, am I right? And they'll answer yes. Okay, so they'll do that. So to me, an asshole or an absolutist, kryptonite, introspection is kryptonite for an absolutist, and their superpower is avoiding it through second guessing. Okay, let's see what we got here. Gonna need more camera angles to get to the truth. Beautifully put. I did fuss for a half hour this morning over the camera stuff, trying to get it right. I am upgrading, as you can see, or at least trying to. And it's a funny situation because I'll spend a half hour to 45 minutes getting it more right. And then when it finally is, and I want to hit the button to get it going, I'm going to change my lighting a little bit here. Oh, look at this, so fancy. Oh man. Oh wow. Okay. Then I have to remember what the hell I was about to talk about in my video. So that happens. Yeah, more camera angles. Okay. All right. So one of the things also about truth that I wanted to get to, I touched on it last week, but it's really important in my work, is the thing about aboutness, representation, how you can represent and then represent and then represent. That's what's going on with second guessing and third guessing and fourth guessing. And one of the things we're up against is that we don't know where the limit is on that. There is no limit on it. For every story I tell, for example, introspecting is not a single move. It's not me just stepping out of myself. The standard version of introspection is you look inside and find your authentic self. I don't think that's what's going on at all. I don't think I actually have an authentic self. I'm way too complicated for that, and I bet you are too. But what I can do is I can imagine stepping out of myself to see myself from the outside through some other perspective, a different camera angle, right? Well, but then I can step out of that and see myself seeing myself. So I'm a good guy. I've got my behavior, and then I could describe it as I'm a good guy, and then I could describe that as I like to think I'm a good guy, and then I could say, I remember that I like to think that I'm a good guy, and you just could go up and up and up. There is no ultimate point of view where you could claim the truth, and that's again the last word paradox. Let me see. Anna wrote something longer. We know our own truths. What we've done. We know what we've done. We push away the uncomfortable bad memories, and that's mostly all that's topical. I think, yes. Notice what you did there. You could say, I'm being truthful, or you can say, I think I'm being truthful. Now, I'm inviting you and to think that up notches and notches. So, one's own truth. I don't subscribe to that translation of it. I know that we all have our own interpretations. One thing that also came to me last night is that common sense is a terrible term for it. Occasionally we get these stillborn concepts because someone puts a name on it. So common sense was coined by Aristotle. That's not what we mean. The problem with it is that sense has two uses. One is sensation, any of our five senses. The other is rationality. Common sense is not what we really mean. What we mean is commonly sensed. That is the interpretations that we have in common. And I want to argue it contains a whole lot of nonsense. That's my point about it. So I am not going to wield that word truth as if it's something that one can possess. And I'm and I'm not going to buy the one has their truth. One has their interpretation. And what I'm doing is studying interpretation from the origins of life forward. In the academic world, the way we talk about interpretation is by paying attention to the objects interpreted. So, for example, there's information theory, as if there's this stuff out there called information. And then there's semiotics, which is where I work, which is on the understanding of how significance happens, how something becomes about something for someone trying to do something, how it becomes useful, how it becomes how something is interpreted for functional effort. So I got to explain that stuff from the origins of life, and I think we have a good model for it. At least it's a highly testable model that doesn't have any smoke and mirrors, any hand waving. We have to explain it from the second law of thermodynamics forward. I have coined the term hermeneology. Hermeneutics is the study of the pursuit of the right interpretation, mostly in religious studies. And I'm saying hermeneology would be the study of the emergence and nature of interpretation. So this may be more fussy than you want to go, and yet at the same time, and I'm saying the problem is that what you just said here, a Trumpist could say just as easily. There is this tendency in us to feel some truth, some idea resonate with us, and then to think that it's exclusively ours. So something I do with all memes I ever see is I put them in the mouth of my rivals and see whether they could say it too. They could say that too. But a standard move is that Trumpists say he tells it like it is. That is, he speaks truth. And I have to point out to them in conversations that what you mean is you like his interpretation. He could be honest, he could be dishonest, he is dishonest, but even if he was honest, he can give his honesty, but he cannot, that doesn't mean it's truth. He can give his honest interpretation. Obviously, a lot of us honestly believe, all of us believe untrue things. So honesty is not truth. It's just so fundamental. And yet I think we have an aversion to it. And why? Because we want that last word. And then we can do the thing where it says, well, everybody has a different truth, which is basically, let's agree to disagree. And you'll get that from the Trumpists too. So I'm encouraging you to think about the possibility, just drop your line, take a meme, and brand it to a different lifestyle brand. Brand it to the lifestyle brand that you find most pathetic and annoying, and then see how it holds up. For example, I have friends who extol their own hopefulness. They're hopeful, unlike their enemy. I assume I am no more hopeful than Trumpists. I don't get to say we have hope. Remember the Obama poster with hope. Yeah, you and who else? Get in line, right? Everybody's got hope. We just hope for different things. So what I'm doing here is double clicking on this idea of truth and honesty. And I want to make that distinction clear. It came up for me first. I'm a bass player, and I had an encounter with a luthier, a guy who makes guitars. And we started talking about guitars, bass guitars. And then I saw that he was a Trumpist, and we started to talk. And he said, well, I should warn you, I'm a critical thinker, he said. Okay, I said, all right. And he said, no, you got to believe me about that, which is a wonderful thing about my own truth. I know you don't believe me, but believe me, you should believe me. It's kind of what he was saying. And I said, well, I have a PhD in the pursuit of truth, and I could never say that I'm a critical thinker. I could never say that I am a realist or something like that. I have to recognize that I'm actually a human being and therefore as prone to delusion as the next guy. And why am I prone to delusion? Because I got to keep comfort in my own skin, just like you, just like everybody. It's the first priority. I mean, we can talk as though our words are just rational and neutral. But these days, that's becoming less and less plausible. In the touchy 2020s, we're all a little anxious, and we're all bound to white knuckle grab what we claim is our interpretation as the honest, realistic truth. And he said, no, you don't understand. I could take a lie detector test. Okay, he hadn't taken a lie detector test, but he said it like, I could take a lie detector test and it would prove that I really believe what I believe. And I had to, that's where I actually realized that you have to be much clearer about this difference between honesty and truth. What is truth? Let's try this out. What is reality? I think we're going to debate what reality contains till the end of our days. And I don't think there's much debate about the container. The container is whatever we interpret is likely to fuck us up or disadvantage us if we ignore it. That is, it is about finding the things that you think matter. So there are plenty of people. I talked to one, as I say, for 2.5 hours this week, who has been a religious person and hasn't quite given it up and not sure he wants to, even though he's also a very capable scientist. For him, the Bible, much of the Bible remains true or realistic. I don't find it to be at all, but he does. And what does he mean by that? Well, it's contained within the ever-changing set of stuff that matters, that's worth interpreting, that's worth tracking. The interpretation is the business end of information. So for him, what the Bible says is information that affects how he wants to live. And I think that's dangerous as hell, but I also think that he's making a claim about what reality contains. I wrote it up this week. Let's see. Sorry. Let's see. Sorry. I wrote a lot of stuff. I do a lot of short writing on Facebook. I'm old-fashioned that way. I wrote, for your own safety and ours, it would probably be best if your religion did not influence your real-world decisions. I said that in part inspired by this 2.5-hour conversation with a Trump-supporting religious person, because by his own account, it has tripped him up a lot. Religion has tripped him up a lot. I mean, he has regrets about how he was raised to be devoutly committed and then woke up to science, and now he's torn between the two. And I kept on recommending to him what I recommend to all of us, what I see as probably the best hope for society, and also why I think that you are doing a major public service when you watch movies, play video games, and masturbate, and then zip up after. I think that we all need our comfort. We need reassurance. This is just fundamental. It's what happened when we left the walled Garden of Eden, is that we are stuck in this world of word-wielding people and a world that is changing really rapidly. So it's scary being a human. And we need a lot of affirmation, the kind of affirmation we can get through what I call scornography, which is a major issue for us anti-Trumpists. It's all they run on over there. is scornography, the pornographic effect of scorn, the idea that since those guys are human, it proves I'm superhuman, that kind of scornography. It's another form of masturbation. But I believe in that stuff. Sorry, I don't believe in it. I believe that there's no escaping it. I relieve in it. So what I said to this guy, as though if I had to choose one takeaway, I said to him from our conversation, it's this: become an honest reliever. He was saying, I'm really torn between my religion and my scientific approaches. And I was saying, you can have your cake and eat it too, as long as you leave the cake on the table after you're done eating some. Honest relievers say things like, I believe in scientific progress. I relieve in church. I relieve in movies. I relieve in masturbation. I'm just fascinated by optimal illusion, kidding ourselves the safe way, safe escapism, idsercise, which is exercising our ids, off jerking, which is playing the exceptionalist, which is a jerky move to do, offline, even online offline. But, like if you're masturbating in porn or you're playing a video game or something, that's online. But what I mean is not in the real world. And then you zip up after. I think egotainment is essential for humans and has been all along. And it is the core attraction of entertainment. Entertainment originally meant to stretch towards, like I'll entertain your idea. Egotainment is stretching out. It's basically fluffing ourselves up, enjoying our ego, which is actually our id. It's our sense that we're exceptional, that comes from our visceral experience of ourselves. And then to do that and then zip up and come back to reality, and try to make better guesses about what reality contains. Well, that's a lot. Let's see what I've got here in the way of questions. It's usually always a lot. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So we have our own truths. We know our own truths, or is it we have our ideas? This is Rob, that either lead to us persisting or ending, but doesn't mean we have truth. I'm more with Rob on that one. I don't want to abuse the word truth that way. We have our convictions. I don't think it's truth. I had a wonderful exchange this week with another Trumpist friend. I've got a few, and I mind them as thoroughly as I possibly can. We had gotten in a little kerfuffle, and what's nice about us is that we can actually handle that sort of stuff. We're both, the Greek term for it is eristic. We love a good conflict. I love a good conflict. Not a flailing at each other in what I call an infallibility death match. Those are stupid. It's where I'm right about everything, you're right about everything. Or either I'm right about everything and you're wrong about everything, or vice versa. No, this is actually, there's some content there, but I'm also able to attack his character and he can attack mine, and we can handle that. That is, we can up level, we can go meta on each other, and it doesn't feel too threatening. But we had gotten to a kerfuffle because he had sent me something. I didn't notice at first that it was someone else speaking, but I think it was also kind of sort of him speaking to, which right after the Charlie Kirk murder, where he and it had escalated because I was responding to him as if he was speaking for himself, and like I think he sort of was. He said, "Prove me wrong," and I said to him, "That's not how it works. Arguments don't settle things with proof. The only thing that does is the future. You know, he could vindicate himself the way that Charlie Kirk the jerk did. Like, I won the argument, therefore I'm right. That is not how it works. Time will tell, and even then it won't tell well. Time will tell up to a point. There have been so many people in history who have been elevated as the truth and then demoted to to outer wrongolia, a major misstep. So I don't even think time will tell. But the prove me wrong bravado is fascinating to me. Like you can solve these things in a debate. No, the future is the what will tell. And I will say this, and I say it ironically, I do live by one absolute ironclad law, which is always do today what worked tomorrow. Absolutely ironclad, except for four things: worked for whom, worked how, which tomorrow, and since tomorrow isn't here, how would we even know? But I do love that statement of it because it includes the past, present, and future. Always do today what worked tomorrow. um, being heuristic, being someone who likes a good fight, also includes liking a good fight with yourself. And I feel lucky to have lived a safe enough life that I can afford to doubt myself. I don't assume it would be easy for anybody in a different situation. My peculiar and perverse situation is that I actually don't need status in order to keep food on the table, and a lot of people, most people do, and so I can try shit out, and I do all day. I'm in an error tolerant line of work, writing and talking like this. I can correct myself, and I do pretty much all day long. When I've written books, twice as much gets thrown out as it gets included. So it doesn't make me wince to see me wrong for two reasons. One is because I work in a line of work where you can get away with mistakes. It's kind of assumed in writing, and the other is that if I make a mistake, I won't lose my status. In part because I don't have that much status, and in part because I don't need to. It took me until 58 to realize that if I don't need status to put food on the table, I don't actually need status, except for the joy of it. And that's also been on my mind, the idea that I would live to be remembered. The most boring part of a movie for anybody but the ones included in it are the credits. So I don't actually, my ideas have a life of their own. They're not my ideas. I've been scooped many times. I'm mostly scooped by prior thinkers. It doesn't bother me much. Okay, so let's see. Reality is that which smacks you in the face, and I think that's actually what I'm talking about. This is the idea that was grounding for the pragmatists, and I am, in philosophical terms, I'm a pragmatist, which is that there is no kind of objective place you could start from. Last night I coined the term matheism, the treatment of math as God. And there is a problem with that. Is, let's try it out like this. If I said, well, we have to explain everything in terms of logic, why? Why ask why? You can, once again, these stacked levels. Let's see. I love the terms, the scorno and scornography. It's a perfect term. I love when I capture a perfect term. I was looking last night. I took this walk. I had taken some sativa, and I was looking for a term that explained what I was, and landed on ambidoctrous. Ambidoctrous meaning doctrine. So I think in stereo. And last night, later on, perhaps because of the sativa, I realized in the night what a cost it is to me, because as I was falling asleep and almost falling asleep, it was on the one hand, on the opposite hand, on the one hand, on the opposite hand. That's what my mind does. It's thinking in stereo. You probably heard me say it before. It's like driving a winding, trafficy road in the dark that changes as I drive it. Let's see. Hold on a second. This is something that keeps on coming up. Oh, good Lord. Okay. All right. I'm driving this winding road, and I got to watch out on opposite sides of the road, and I've got backseat drivers, one on one side, the other on the other side, and they're both barking at me. Watch out! You're too close to my side. And air all the way over on the other side, because I'm scared of what's on this side, and I've got to listen to that. So I'm ambidoctrous, and it's no way to live. It's the perfect way to live, but I mean, it's the right way to live. It's irony is the truest medicine. Irony is about that situation. Um, but it's not fun in unless it becomes fun. And there are some temperaments that are more inclined towards it than others. I had a conversation this week with a Chinese scholar, a professor of philosophy, who just blows my mind. This guy, uh, the work I do with Terrence Deacon, that is complicated work, really complicated work on trying to figure out, you say most fundamentally, what I call meta dynamics, which is how change changes, because it does change over time through emergent properties. You know, that there wasn't life and now there's life. And with life, things change differently. And with language, things change differently. It's really fussy work with a lot of technical jargon. So here's this guy whose father was a miner, a coal miner in China in the 1970s, when people in China earned, on average, 1/3 of what they earned in sub-Saharan Africa. And here he is, this PhD philosopher for whom English is a second language. And he just nailed it. He got it. I also know his professor. I worked with his professor for a while in China, who's considered the premier philosopher of information in all of China. And the guy was completely on a different track from the kind of approach that we take. So in my case, the apple didn't fall far from the tree at all. My dad was an ironist. He would say things like, I haven't lived my life in vain for nothing. I mean, he was really into the MC Escher stuff that I'm into. And yet, when I see someone who comes from all the way over there, and even, I mean, we got people on this call. Fun Monster blows my mind. I mean, mine was an easy trek. These people come from all the way someplace else over here. I'm not saying that they made the journey to truth, because I'm taking my critique of An's point seriously. No, I don't have truth at all. But I'm a far pace away from where they started, where this Chinese guy did. I mean, I just read an article by him, and it's just fucking brilliant. In by my standards, brilliant by my standards. Okay, let's see. All right, let's see. Reality is an empty cup. My first connection with Terrence Deacon, who is the love of my life and my mentor, colleague, research buddy, started with empty cups. We connected around the Tao. And I was drawn to certain verses in the Tao Te Ching, and he was drawn to the one about the empty cup. And this does relate to everything we've been talking about. It is the constraints that make the cup. That is, we use the basin it creates, but it is created by constraints. And in that case, it's material static constraints. But if I'm talking about how change changes, I'm talking about how constraints compound to where you get a complicated network of constraints like a living being, and then a really complicated constraint like us humans with language, and language is constraining. That's the point about it. It narrows things down. When I start a sentence, it's basically 20 questions. You don't know where I'm going. I haven't composed it in advance. I don't know what words are coming out of my mouth next. It starts with a constrained idea of all the things I could say. It starts with an impulse to say something. And then as I express it to you, it tucks down, hopefully, to some clear point. Though not necessarily. Often we want to be ambiguous. Make America great again. Great by whose standards? What do you think? You're exclusively the ones trying to make it great? The way that Make America Great has sucked in so many suckers is because everybody's got their idea of what greatness would be, and they can imagine it and they feel it and it's their truth, and they say, hell yeah. And this is also why woke movements like Make America Great Again always break, is that eventually, reality smacks you in the face. So what would happen if the liberals were eliminated in the United States, is there'd be an awful lot of infighting, as there was, for example, in the Soviet Union. They had the same thing. I can imagine a world that does this, and then reality smacks them in the face, and suddenly they're all splintered, and that becomes easy for the psychopath Joseph Stalin to then just pick people off by making it so he didn't actually. If you're going to do the kind of thing Stalin did, you actually can't have any commitments. Your only goal is to eliminate the enemies, and that's why I think that Trump is like Stalin. And I should also say I dreamt of a Trump long before Trump. I dreamt of someone so obviously only after power. You know, you can mistake Stalin for a communist. I did raise that question with one of the Trumpists this week, which was communism tried? I don't think so. I don't think it was tried. And then with the other Trumpists I talked to for 2.5 hours this week, I realized that I'm like one of the only people around who's experienced communism, because I lived on a commune for 7 years that wasn't a dictatorship. It didn't do that. And partly because of the scale. It was only 1,400 people. So yeah, we managed for a while. It got shaky, and hierarchy did emerge eventually. And then it stopped being a commune. But I lived it. And I would not say that any member of the Soviet Union ever experienced socialism or communism. Why? Because the dictator takes over. Okay, let's see what we got here. Are we all on a reality diet? We intermittently fast, we binge, or we starve ourselves from its nutritious value to make us look better? That's an interesting and complicated idea to play with. I like that one. Reality diet, that can mean either that you're only eating out reality or that you're only not eating reality. What I'm saying is that we're on an affirmation. Well, let's see how to think about this. I live in two worlds. We all do. That's what you get with language. So I live in the real world like all other critters do, and I also live in my mind, which is where I can imagine all sorts of possibilities. So what you're dieting on and what you're not is interesting. And here, let me try to draw a parallel that I've long found interesting. So imagine you got this person who wants to lose weight. And the way that they do it is they decide to be on all the diets at once, because the more diets you're on, the more likely you are to lose weight. Except that they're on a diet that they employ. They're on all the diets, but selectively. And there's a diet that allows you to eat anything. So I mean, there's a diet that allows you to eat anything you want. Not that there's a diet that says you can eat anything, but that you can just selectively employ it. That's how most people employ morality. They claim to be to live by all the moral rules, as if the more morals you claim to live by, the more moral you are. But they're employed selectively. And so I'm actually much more interested in what I've called moral triage, which is you can only have one first priority, I mean, literally speaking, and you better get them in order. You got to figure out which morals you can afford to live by, which ones you don't have to live by because you're not going to be able to achieve them anyway, and they're the ones that you don't have to live by because they're doing fine. That's what triage is about. Moral triage is way more interesting to me, and yet it's so much easier to do the moral profligacy, where you just claim to be involved in to have embraced all the morals. And this is the kind of thing you'll get from douchebags like Charlie Kirk. Is they are trumpiring. They are trumping you by playing the umpire and talking about what's admissible in your court. I did a MAGA Mike this week about that. So you just play judge. Not about whether you're judgmental. We're all judgmental. It's about whether you play the supreme authority. And what he will do is he'll pull out whatever law saves and serves him in the moment, and then he'll neglect it the rest of the time. So he'll he'll pull that righteous indignation bullshit about don't interrupt me, and then the next second he's interrupting you. That's the gladiatorial style that those douchebags like so much. Okay, let's see. Good. I'm glad to hear that, Liminal. I wonder what it says. Does it make mention of me? Because I'm the guy who's done this. I coined that term. Let's see. And I'm always looking for credits in the credit system. Let's see. Sunday at church, getting yelled at by the whole. Okay. I remember how I lost my religion. Yes, let's see. And how long can we wait to avoid it? Well, Rob, you're on to the biggest challenge from my perspective, which is that we've just about used up the Earth's carrying capacity for self-flattering narratives, interpretations, our truths. And so how long can we avoid facing it? Not much longer. How likely are we to just pull up our sleeves, roll up our sleeves, and face reality? Very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. And that's why I said at the beginning of this that even if civilization is going down, I want to understand what we actually are as best I can, taking as careful notes as I can. For one and all, even if the one is only, even if the all is only me, one, it seems like a reasonable thing to do with myself, while trying to at the same time get us to face reality. That's what MAGA Mike is about. I am currently putting out one a day. I like that. It's a rhythm I can keep up because I'm disconcertingly good at playing a total dumbass. I mean, those are single takes. I just love that. I can do that so well. Let's see. My damned autocorrect is messing up my comments. Okay, we'll have to see about that. I hope it gets its shit together. Let's see. I love the terms. Yes, please. These terms. Fun Monster suggested this week that I start selling accessories like coffee mugs with the terms on them and maybe definitions. I'd like that. I don't know if anybody would buy them. I could offer them, though it's produced on demand. I could do that. That might be fun. A client asked me yesterday, I still see these consulting clients who are mostly dealing with local absolutists in their lives. Fathers, stepfathers, wives, husbands. It's really interesting work. Children, that is the offspring that have gone absolutist because it's so much fun and so satisfying and so easy if you can get away with it. So a lot of my work is on how to keep you from getting away from it. And one of them said, have you got a dictionary of all these terms? And I said, yeah, I've got a dictionary that I wrote maybe 10 years ago when I had 500 terms. But by now, I mean, on that walk yesterday, I coined, I think, 4 new ones. They're not all good. Yes, merch. That's how I'll keep food on the table, or that's the cup in which I will hold my coffee is one with my terms on it. I might try it. Let's see. Growing up in Oklahoma cured me. And also Reaganism. Lance, I want to say something. Hi, Lance. Nice to meet you. That's not what I wanted to say. I want to say that's an interesting thing. I had 7 years of Orthodox Jewish school, and I was not impressed. I mean, really not impressed. I was oppressed, but not impressed. And it never took. And every once in a while, I'll cycle back to see if I can find some wisdom in the Old Testament. And yeah, like I did earlier in this call when I said the fall from grace, the fall out of paradise, was the beginning of the word, not God's word, but the beginning of human words, language. And that's why we have been wandering the desert ever since. But as a theology, as a way to live, it turned me off royally, like growing up in Oklahoma might have done for you. So that's an interesting effect. I used to think that the hard sell of religion was likely to make us a more secular country. And it has in lots of places. I have new clients from Scotland, and I had to look up what the propensity towards religion is in Scotland. And I discovered, no, they're mostly a secular country by now. Secular and Presbyterian is one of the most noxious religions there ever was. It's the Calvinist thing, where the assumption is that we're all sinners and that before God created the world, he decided who was going to hell and who wasn't, and there's fuck all you can do about it. I mean, it's really a piece of work, that one. Maybe that's why they became more secular. I don't know what it is. In the meantime, there's another challenge around it, which I've had to sober myself up to since then, which is that lots of people give up their religion. They swear it off. They give up the dogma, but they don't give up the dogmatism. And that's, again, the satisfaction, the joy of being an absolutist, is that you solve reality. The only thing left for you to learn is how to tutor people on reality better. That is so satisfying if you can get away with it. And so there's a lot of people who will jump from one cult camp to a counter-cult camp. And counter-cults are of great interest to me. You know, like libertarianism is a counter-cult to communism. Protestantism is a counter-cult to Catholicism. They're both playing the same absolutist game. They're just doing it with opposite lifestyle branding. Let's see. All right. What was that book that synopsizes the bubble? It's called God is Disappointed in You, Fun Monster. That's the book. And there's an audio version of this. Anybody wants it, email me and I'll send you the audio version. It's delightful. It's a comedian who read the 66 chapters of the Bible, Old and New Testament. Is it 66? I forget. And synopsizes them accurately. He tested it with religious people and they were okay with it. But it also makes very clear how goofy that book is. I mean, it's really goofy. Oh, and this came up yesterday around Matheism. So I just wrote the word Matheism on Facebook, where I'm prolific all the time. I'm just posting things. Whenever I get an idea, and I advise this for you too, I've said it before, start capturing your ideas and put them down somewhere. If you don't feel safe enough or they're too half-baked to put on social media, that's fine. Put them someplace else, but keep them and build on them. So I got this whole production line where I'll have an idea in any state of mind, shower, walking, whatever, stone, straight, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. I'll get the idea, I'll put it on Facebook, I'll get some interaction. So this one guy wrote to me and said, math is at least more realistic. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he inspired a new thought in me. To me, the religious texts, the sacred texts, are touted as though they are the one true recipe for living right. But that is not at all how they read. They read as catalogs of rationalizations and moralizations for doing whatever the fuck you want. And you don't have to go through the text to see that. You can simply look at history and see the great variety of behaviors that have been justified by the Bible. And just the fact that there are 45,000 Christian sects, that's just astonishing to me. And I suddenly dawned on me, same's true with math. Math is treated as though it is the one true way. If everybody crunched the numbers, they'd come to the same conclusions. That is not how math works. That's not how logic works. Because you start with assumptions that you put into it in the form of variables, for example. And you can start with any variables and prove anything through math. That is, you can make a valid argument for anything through math, which is the same thing I was talking about with the sacred texts. They give you the feeling of rigor, but they're actually just stuffy and fluffy, is how I think about them. Wow. Hey, don't worry about that, Osrail Crowley. I'm You can always find too much of me, including this, because it stays up on video. And in a way, that's a better way to watch me, because then you can watch at whatever speed you like. I very rarely watch videos these days at normal speed because there's so much I want to catch. Let's see. In my view, God stands for the guardians of darkness. They are not guarding light as they make it seem. Okay. Ezrael Crowley, dark and light are interesting. I don't know if you caught this, but at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, someone asked Elon Musk what Charlie Kirk meant to him. And in his stuttering autistic way, he came up with, he was the light in the face of darkness. Okay, anybody can fucking claim to be the light or have seen the light. Let's just, what a standard move. I've seen the light. Okay. How do we know what's the difference between light and dark? How do we decide what's good and what's bad? Really complicated question. I assume that good is real. Good and bad, or normativity, better and worse, is real once there's life. Good and bad are always with respect to someone for whom things are good or bad. And that, I think, starts with life. So I can say that a trait is advantageous to the simplest organism that ever emerged from chemistry. I can't talk about good and bad at some fundamental level. That is, I do not see the universe has this division between good and evil. Nothing is good or bad for an inorganic chemical, or an organic chemical for a non-living system, a non-organic thing. Nothing is good or bad for my table. My table, I can animate it. I can imagine that something is good or bad for it, but it's actually not. Okay. So good and bad start with the origins of life, and they don't start at the level of morality. Moral good and bad are something you can only do in language. We're the only ones who can think about what's good or bad for civilization. A dog can't do that. But what's good and bad is like what's real. It's the same question. I did ask my Christian friend this week whether Jesus accepted and loved everything, which is that he treated it all as good, or did he love the right things, not the wrong things? This is a question I always ask Christians when I get a chance, and their response is always the same. It's the first time they've thought about that question. I just think that's amazing. This guy gave me a good 30 seconds wondering, and then he told me the parables about Jesus loving the prostitutes or hanging out with the prostitutes. I said, I understand. Now, did he hang out with them indiscriminately because he'd hang out with anybody? Or did he hang out with them because they were the right people to hang out with, not the wrong ones? He's totally stumped by it. He hadn't thought about it. I mean, can you imagine you're devoted to Christ, you want to be like Christ, you say you're not perfect, but you're trying, and you're trying to be loving everything, and you keep on kicking yourself as this guy does because he fails on that front, and you haven't even looked at that question about whether you're discerning. So I gave him I offered him a way to see that this isn't a Christian question. I ask mindfulness people the same question. Is being mindful paying attention to everything, or is being mindful paying attention to the right things? And they're as stumped by it. They're as stumped by it. So I'm assuming that no organism can pay attention to anything. I'm paying attention to you right now. I am not paying attention to the dust up in the corner. At least I wasn't until I just mentioned it, and I'm still only mentioning it conceptually. But no, I have limited love. I have limited care. Oh, look, I've got limited emojis. Let me see if I can do that again. I don't know what I did. I'm just seeing if I can make those things show up. I keep on trying to turn them off. Let's see. Okay. So, yeah, if we're not dealing with that finiteness, I have limited morality. Why? Morality is a constraint. It's not something you simply choose to say, wow, it should be good if everybody was this way. I'll decide to be that way. No, every moral principle is a constraint. It ties your fucking hands. It's saying you can't do this, you can do that, or do only this, and that means you can't do that. It's all about constraints. It's all about those cups. So once you start putting yourself inside of cups, you are constraining yourself. And that's the problem we're dealing with when dealing with people like the Trumpists. Because what they're doing is they've simply got this herobotic move going on, which is, and they're beating us at a game that the liberals were doing for the longest time. They simply say, if it sounds good, we do it to infinity. If it sounds bad, we never do it, and you do it always to infinity. That's all they're saying. They're paying no attention to actually living by this stuff. It's simply a declaration. And it's a declaration from on high. They're playing judge. In the meantime, some of us are straining to be moral. So that's like, we're fighting guys who just, it's full-fisted, full arsenal, anything they want to do, because they just simply declare with lip service, talk is cheap, I'm the most moral, and therefore I get to do anything. You know, the one thing they have to not be a hypocrite about is their consistent claim that they are not hypocrites. And we, in the meantime, are tying our hands behind our backs with all of these moral principles. So, no, it's worth recognizing that about those moral principles. A lot of people say, you know, why don't we just choose to be nice? That's not how it works. And then this morning I wrote this about niceness. Or kindness. Let me see. I think it's worth catching here. Soon to be a minor motion picture. Here it is. The misunderstood power of kindness. A date rapist is kind enough to inveigle his victim into his lair. Trump was kind enough to seduce the U.S. into his clutches. Many people have been lured into bad marriages through random acts of kindness. Perhaps you think that's not kindness. Kindness is an attitude, not a behavior. Maybe so, but how else can we gauge attitude except through behavior? I talk to Trumpists who insist they are committed to him out of kindness. I talked for 2.5 hours the other night with a committed Trumpist who insists that it's because he believes in the sanctity of life. I know this guy well. He really, really means it. In relationships, we have two basic means for influencing people, carrots and sticks. Kindness is a carrot. It's accommodating others, and it can be the gift of a Trojan horse. Many assume kindness solves things. It's like carrots all round. Nice fantasy, but reciprocation is never guaranteed. Give an inch of kindness and some will reciprocate. Others will take a mile. There. I'm sure I'll post that as a video sometime. Okay, let's see. Cosmic yogurt and Jesus Christ. All right, there we go. There's your diet thing again. What are your thoughts on Kirk's sort of angry Socratic table turning technique where he's cornering people with questions? It seems to be popular among the MAGA bros. I'm glad you bring that up, Limpnol. It's very central to how I think what's going on with them. They actually don't give a rat's ass about content. They don't care about the causes they claim are so important they trump all other causes. I'm quite convinced of that. They're playing a different game, which is why it feels like 3D chess. They're playing, I'm up, you're down. I'm in the judge's seat, you're not. You're beneath me. And the way they play that is through frame dominance. As long as they can get you talking about whatever they want to talk about, they're winning the game. So this is why I get so exasperated by these videos with thumbnails and titles that say, this interviewer whooped this Trumpist's ass. I understand why they're doing that. I'm trying to get more subscribers, more views, and all of that. And we on the anti-Trumpist side we are craving some good news. I mean, just think about how Kimmel played this week. We crave that so much that, of course, those are the thumbnails to produce. I don't have the stomach to do that. And I don't have the stomach because actually they're winning those debates. We may come away from those debates feeling like, wow, we really cornered them. They were like deer in the headlights. No, they weren't. They never were. They won their game. Their game was dominating the conversation. So that is, I think, all Charlie Kirk did. And the way to do it, how do you get someone talking about your topic? Well, you can do it by talking about something you know interests them, but that's not nearly as possible as reliable as putting them on the defensive. So accusing people, interrogating people, questioning them from on high is how you trumpire, how you trump people by umpiring. And the reason it's like 3D, why it feels like 3D chess is we're trying to keep our hands on the ground, once again, constrained by reality. And they have no such constraints. They're not paying attention to the X and Z axis at all. They're paying attention to the Y axis. Me up, you down. It's pure sadonarcissism. And I recognize the sadonarcissism in me. That's why I like scoronography as much as the next guy. But I'm not just playing that game. I have to engage in a balance between the two. I have to be realistic and I have to indulge in my egotainment. That's because I'm human, right? So I do enjoy laughing at those people and laughed at Charlie Kirk more than most early on, once again, primarily because I can afford to. I'm not going to lose my job because of it. And I also feel that that's an obligation for people in my situation. I have much less trouble with struggling people unwilling to second guess themselves than I do the wealthy, the safe, the secure. For you to have the capacity, the headroom to actually explore and not explore, I understand why that would be what you do, but I think it's awful. Those of us who have some freedom have to be brave enough to employ it, or at least we have to brave enough. I don't know if brave is the right word. I don't consider myself particularly brave. I consider myself safe, which is different. And the same thing is true in academics. When someone like Noam Chomsky becomes famous for his linguistic theory, which is total claptrap, he should have doubted more, and he doubted less. That's, you could say, the paradox or irony of Noam Chomsky, is that he was all about other people becoming more open and to second guessing. I know lots of people who knew him directly and worked with him directly. Total tyrant. And that doesn't surprise me. Another example of that, Fela Kuti. Ever heard of this guy? He was a Nigerian musician, a sax player, who basically brought James Brown style music to Nigerian music. He created this Afro funk, Afro pop, where there's just a running groove, and he plays, and he in effect preaches liberal theology, liberalism, or a freeing from authority. Well, I played for maybe 5 years with a guy who played for 5 years in his band and was earning $50 a week working with him. And he went to him asking for a raise, and Fela Kuti said, "Fuck off! I can always get a guitarist." So, and there have been a few liberals who I've said this to. I've said, "You're the kind of liberal free thinker who I think would take quite well to dictatorship if you should be offered it." So anyway, I don't know where that started. Let's see. Limited love for limited light. There we go. Limited light. Uh, uh, Limited light. Okay, that's a different. So we got liminal and we've also got limited light. Are you guys trying to confuse me or what? Okay. Intolerance of uncertainty is harmful. Expanding the capacity for uncertainty can help. I want to speak directly to that because I want to raise an uncertainty about that. How do we do that? How do we become safer, focused lady? For me, there's no hope of doing it by saying, yeah, that'd be helpful. Why not? I have to understand why it's harmful and beneficial. My rule is all truisms, like the one you just expressed, are half true. And if you want to get at the other half, ask yourself why, if it's so damn true, do people have to keep on saying it? My friend, the co-founder of Move On, this week sent me a video her husband made about thinking for yourself and all of the virtues of thinking for yourself. And, just choose independent mindedness. That's a truism. And I think, therefore, it's half true. So I have to recognize, I can't simply be a proselytizer for doubt, even though that is my game. I have to recognize why we avoid it. So try this out, focus lady. I'm saying that though we work in words, we wield words, we are fundamentally neuronally sentient. We feel more than we think. What do you get when you cross feelings, intense feelings, with words? You get mostly words that justify your feelings. It is very hard to endure the pain of feeling like we don't know. I mean, I've said this for 30 years. My first book was called Doubt, A User's Guide. And then I changed the name to Negotiate with Yourself and Win, Doubt Management Skills for People Who Can Hear Themselves Think. I've said for years that I could take a tax write-off for every time I doubt. It's my line of work. I study doubt. I study doubt and certainty in the interpretive process. But I fucking hate doubt. Not doubt in a game where there's no skin in the game, but try this out. You got a child who's got really bad, seemingly terminal cancer. You got two possible ways to treat it. Both of them are very iffy. And you're trying to figure out which one to try because you can only try one. Yeah. So I don't think doubt is as much something you can simply elect to do. I understand why people second yes themselves, and I wouldn't put it past me to do the same. I mean, because it's the visceral thing. You got to understand, emotions evolve to be fucking convincing. I mean, have you tried a stomach ache? Can you simply just think your way out of a stomach ache? I never could. I hate stomach aches. They're really convincing. So I want to get beyond the half-truths sold as truisms, because that's the only way I could possibly get to a place where I can tolerate more doubt, is to actually understand what I have to give up in order to tolerate more doubt. You've probably heard me say this before. Dunning-Kruger is not as smart as it thinks it is. These are not people who are just too dumb to recognize that they're dumb. Would you like to admit to yourself that you are dumb? Is that a fun feeling? I mean, it can be if you're being ironic and all that, but it's mostly not fun to feel stupid. There's a beautiful line in this blues singer who went off to learn how to do the tuba throat singing from Tibet. I'm forgetting his name, Penna. He's got a lot. It's a hard. He's also blind. He was blind. He was a blind blues musician who gets taken off to Tibet. Tibet. No, not Tibet. To Mongolia. Sorry. And it's a beautiful line. It's a hard life if you're stupid. It's a hard life if you're blind. That line. It's a hard life if you're stupid. Nobody wants that. I don't want to feel stupid. I need all the affirmation I can get. Less so now than I did. But we don't just give up that affirmation and say, well, okay, I turned out to be inadequate. That's not easy for us, any of us. And second guessing from the beginning. Oh, and let me just say one more thing about certainty. Try the extreme where you're open-minded. Someone accused me of not being open-minded this week, as everybody does, because I wasn't open-minded to his closed-minded assertions. He tried to. This is a philosophy professor, but I promised him I would never do that. I would never say, "Well, you're closed-minded because you don't agree with me." But imagine what it's like to be completely open-minded. So you wake up with what we call equipotential. Everything is equally likely. Okay, as if making assumptions make us an ass of you and me. That's schizophrenia. I love that this comes from Focus Lady. What is focus? It's confidence in your bets. That's what it is. That you're paying attention to the right things, not the wrong things. So And I'll take this, I'll get poetic with for a second. Lady is loosely associated with yin. Yin is broad receptivity. Yang is the sword of decisiveness. They're considered male and female energies, but I know plenty of men who play yin moves and plenty of women who play yang moves. We're talking about aperture, how open, how receptive to be to what. How much of a leap are you able to make? There are lots of leaps I don't make. I don't pretend I'm open-minded. That exclusively, nor would I want to be completely open-minded. I don't want to live with uncertainty, especially these days, because these days you can't get anything done without a whole lot of concentrated effort. You know, you couldn't build a career, is what I mean, and actually get paid for it unless you put in a whole lot of work. So I don't have a problem with people focusing, and I will debate where we should focus. But I don't simply assume that uncertainty is easy or always the best move. We make investments. We can change our investments. How we change them is an interesting challenge we all face, I think. When do you redecide something? When do you revisit it? Because you need the focus and you need the lady, you need the yin. That's my sense of it. Okay, I'm not keeping up. If I miss something, just know this. If I don't get around to what exactly is on your mind, or if I miss it or whatever, you can always email me. And we can talk about it there. Let's see what we've got here. Shame dropping. Well, I'll pick up with that for a second. It's not, let's see, I don't know, intolerance, shame dropping. I'm going to connect that to what Focus Lady said because I think there's an interesting connection. It's back to the thing about error tolerance. I really, when I had this debate where we got into the kerfuffle, me and that Trump supporter, where I misinterpreted him, I had no trouble saying, sorry, I misinterpreted you. I didn't feel any shame in it. I identify, this might be a way to get at what Focus Lady is talking about. I don't feel learned out, like burnt out on learning. And some of that is my circumstance. My confidence currency comes from learning. And that's just a rare, peculiar situation. I live in Berkeley, California. My friends are people who are paid to keep on exploring, to keep learning. And then I'm also not identifying as learned. I really never, you don't have to believe me on this, but my experience of it is there is never a time when I come off of one of these things or when I've thought of something where I say, wow, I really am learned. I'm delighted to be over the question of whether I'm smart or dumb. I was dogged by that question for my first 40 years. And now I'm just kind of over the question. I don't know. I'm not interested. I'm interested in the work. I identifying as learning, which means that standing corrected is easy. It actually reinforces my dignity. That's why I stand corrected. But I also have to factor in that I stand corrected because I'm not demoted from status or income for what I think and what I correct. There are lots of positions where you can't afford that. And you'll also notice that Trump, while he always chickens out, never chickens out on his claim that he's never chickening out. You know, he never would actually express, he will say, did I get acetaminophen right? But he never will say, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. You won't get that from him, which is why so many people lust for him and why so many people think that he's got an eternal winning streak. My argument is that he ran on nothing but pretending that he's always right, righteous, and mighty. And that in these difficult times, we would want a sure bet. And so that's a lot of what drew him in. Okay, let me see what we got. We're winding down in 15 minutes. So this is your last chance to get your bids in. Let's see. Which is also why when someone says, Jeremy, you ignorant slut, I don't wince. I think this is really important to your ability to fight well. And I started that series called How to Not Suck at Fighting, and I have every intention of actually doing something with it. I just haven't gotten around to it. I've had too many things going on. But a whole lot of it is to have pre-grieved the possibility. I have to have pre-grieved the possibility that I'm stupid, or that I'm an old fart who thinks he's young and doesn't realize that his ideas are dated and no one's interested anymore. I have to pre-grieve that stuff. This is how you deal with the Charlie Kirk guy. Because the Charlie Kirk guy wants to snag you into their frame dominance, and they're going to try to do it most fundamentally by attacking your character on this or that. And then they'll say, don't attack my character. That's ad hominem, which it isn't. But they'll attack your character. And if you haven't pre-grieved the possibility that you're what they say you are, you'll be dealing with it for the first time. It'll be this feedback that you've just put in your mouth and you'll be busy spitting it out. No, I'm perfectly fine ingesting that kind of stuff. I'm even fine with the anxiety it might produce in me, like wondering whether I've overstepped or not. But no, pre-grieving those possibilities is really important to me. It's how I would say shame dropping works. Okay, the introspection and second guessing from the beginning of this needs more exploration. Got it. Okay. Up, out, about. You and I are having an argument, limited light. And it goes on for a few minutes, back and forth. So this is what I call contradox. There are two positions that are opposed to each other, and they are checks in balance with each other. And at that point, because we have language, we can start to, we can name it. We name this checks and balance sustained system, what we'd call an infinite game. That is, it keeps on going. We can call it the argument. And then we could start arguing about our argument. So the same is true of doubts and self-doubts. It goes up and up and up. I did this whole first series last year, right around this time, called Irony is Your Superpower, which was an ironic name for it, I realized after I named it. But it deals with exactly that challenge. So let me play this out. I've described it before, but I'm just going to give you a simple example of it. You'll see that you're very intuitive about meta levels, going meta. Even though the systematics of two things that sustain each other across each other become a new thing you can talk about. So mom comes into the playroom, the two kids are fighting, and she says, kids, stop fighting. And one kid says, he started it. And the other one says, no, she started it. And mom says, yeah, I don't care who started it, just stop fighting. And then dad comes into the room and says, no, let them fight. And mom says, it's driving me crazy. And he says, I think it's better if you let them fight. And grandma comes into the room and says, don't debate how to raise the kids in front of the kids. And grandpa comes in and tells grandma, don't tell them how to raise their kids. I totally follow that, right? That's 6 fucking levels. I mean, it's a lot of levels. And you could keep on going up from there. So that this is the problem of infinite meta. You can go about every aboutness all the way up. And then the question becomes this wonderful double entendre that came to me as I was writing the thing. Where do you get off? Where do you get off? I mean that both ways. Where do you say, okay, this is the key issue? And what our hearts do is we say, well, no, the real issue is whatever I want to win on. That's the really important issue. So I think that's the predicament we end up with language, is infinite meta. There is meta going on in life. The video I've got coming out this probably today on falling up is about how hierarchy happens from the origins of life all the way out to everything familiar and human. The video starts with why I'm addicted or codependent on Amazon. But it plays out in your love life. It plays out in your addiction to your cell phone and the network. It plays out in altruism, plays out in gene duplication, whole genome duplication. It plays out in our addiction to vitamin C from external sources. I think you'll find it interesting. It's really worth looking at. But before language, you couldn't just keep on labeling levels. You can't get dogs to go up levels like that. But we can, and that's true of introspection too. That's what I was trying to get at before, which is I like to think it's what we call orders of inference. Try this out. Once again, it's not introspection, but I could do this introspectively. I think that he believes that she said that they were thinking that there's a limit to how many of us we can handle, but there's not a logical limit to infinite meta. And this gets right back to Gödel's theory of incompleteness, if you want to go that way. And if you do, take a look at a video that makes it as intuitive as possible called Gödel Mighty. Gödel is spelled Godel. And it's basically a conversation. Gödel Mighty is like God Almighty. And it's a conversation between a Nigerian friend who I brought in to act it out, a teenage woman, and God, who I play, of course. And you'll see the problem of infinite meta as played out in our relationship with God. And it's a great intuitive way to get at it. Okay, I'd love to hear your thoughts on grift. MAGA and all podcast bros need to be grifters. It's unfortunate that we have these kind of antique terms like grift. But my point is that playing God is easier than being human if you can get away with it. And to the point about grift, it's not just easier, it's way more profitable. I mean, do you see how many views I got on my videos? I don't think I'm grifting. I could be wrong about that, but I'm certainly not making any money. I think my first burst, I got $1,000 one month. These days, it's $12 a month I make off of my labor of love here. But can you imagine, how do you do grift? How do you do that? I coined the term econopaths for psychopaths who do it for the money. And I think that's a very standard move. And how do you do it? Well, the best way to lie, the most convincing way to lie, is to believe your own lies. And that's not hard for us. We're very good at self-persuasion, especially when the money's rolling in. So that's my sense about grift, is that it's not only playing God is much easier than being human if you can get away with it. And here's an example of the recursion. Remember this guy, Dan Ellsberg, the guy with the Pentagon Papers, the guy who founded the field of behavioral economics? Lucky me, I was one of his best buds for decades. We'd go out to brunch once a month. He died at 92 last year. And when I said that thing about playing God is easier than being human, he said, playing God is being human. And so there's, once again, you get these interesting nestings. And for me, it's all about the fun of being multi-level headed, to be climbing up and down the levels and being tentative about where to land. But again, I have to make clear, this is easy for me in my life. I don't know how much you can afford to do it. And I've been doing it for 30 years. So this business about being multi-level headed is really important to me, to be able to see it from different perspectives and to climb up and down running, up and down and all that, and also to notice the people who are doing that to get off wherever they're advantaged. So there's this whole cat and mouse thing you can get into with people. And Charlie Kirk was a master of this, and Trump is too. He'll move to whatever level is an advantage, and this is the all diets diet, and he'll just simply move to some other principled level where he wins. If you case him up there, he'll move to a different level. This week I've been thinking about what I call spongy ratchets, which is, how do you normalize? How do you push the Overton window? Well, until you get to pure dictatorship, you have to do it gently. You have to do it slowly. So what he'll do is he'll say something outrageous, and if he gets challenged enough, he'll simply backtrack an inch like a sponge, a little absorbent. He'll say, well, I was only joking, or you misinterpreted, or something like that, or it depends on context. Or no, you simply flip to another level. No, I'm all about America. I'm all about positivity, whatever. And then you keep the Overton window shoving over that way. Okay, we're getting close to the end, so I'm going to take a look here. Chapter, okay, there we go. Every star has its own nature, which is right for it. We are not to be missionaries with ideal standards of dress and morals and such hard ideas. Okay, Azrael Crowley, if you come on here, what's going to happen is I will look at that as one backseat driver saying, watch out for something. And I want to hear the other one because I'm thinking in stereo. I'm listening for opposite pairs. This is an argument that goes along with live and let live. And I just want to remind you, live and let live is much easier if you don't have to live with them. I can live and let live with all sorts of people in the world who have no bearing on my life. I'm having a harder time living with Trumpists because they have bearing on my life. And I'll go so far as to say I don't even have a houseplant, let alone a dog, let alone a partner. I'm happier not having to live with that degree of intimacy where the tension arises between kindness and honesty. So let's see. The Azalea quality. Let's see. I don't know. I'm obviously picking up on something in the middle here. So that Michael's talking about with Azrael. Okay, let's see. We are to do what we will and leave others to do what they will. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm arguing. Yeah, the fun of me, if I'm fun at all, and I'm a total pain in the ass to so many people, is that I'll take an answer as the springboard to the next question. And I'll do it by going up, out. So I'll take some idea and I'll pair it with its opposite, and then I'll be dealing with the tough judgment call between them. Now, I would suggest that Azrael Crowley, you don't live by that rule. You can't. You won't, and you shouldn't. Live and let live just doesn't work now that we're all crowded together on this planet and interacting as we do. It's just not possible. So how do I handle this when someone gives me a paradox like that? What you're basically providing here. So you're talking about a kind of tolerance. And you know the standard move, which is be intolerant of intolerance, is a paradox. And I will argue every moral principle you've ever heard is a paradox. I'll give you this example. Golden rule, paradox. If everybody should accommodate everyone, so no one has to accommodate anyone. Okay, so there are three moves, and I've seen them all this week around that. So let's say be intolerant of intolerance, and the fundamentalist hypocrite will say, well, yeah, it may be a paradox, but no, be intolerant of intolerance. And you shouldn't be intolerant of me saying that. Okay. The cynical hypocrite will say, see, morality is bullshit. So I'm going to scold other people for being intolerant of me, but I won't feel any obligation back because it's just a rhetorical ploy. I'm an ironist. And so for me, the question of be intolerant of intolerance is always a lifelong question about what to tolerate and what to not tolerate so that I can do today what worked tomorrow. So that's why if you, I'm not for everybody. I lose, I mean, I've lost 80 subscribers this month. I think I probably had some net gains, so it's probably more than that. I'm not fun. For a lot of people, I'm not fun because I'm going to use your answers as springboards to next questions. And why am I doing that? Because I'm wronging. Because I'm trying to be multi-level headed. So I think what you're saying is half true. And there's this other funny thing that happens with me, which is someone will say tolerance is a virtue, and I say it's a virtue and a vice. And they say, "What? You think it's only a vice?" That's another version of that cat and mouse game, you know. Yeah, okay. All right. Kyle, my thumbnails are still trash. I don't know what I need to do. I think I need to put up scantily clad pictures of me. That's really what's going to draw people in. I'm working on it. I got to get my hot bod back. I have every intention of becoming 25 again when I was a stud muffin. Let's see. Okay. Think for yourself, question authority. Timothy Leary. Okay, this one I gotta deal with. Yeah. Folk, Azrael, we're not on the same page. We could be on the same page about not being on the same page, but I just want to be clear on this. This one came up this week with my friend, the co-founder of Move On, with her husband. So they say, think for yourself. And I say, this is why I'm so irritating. Where it's a year, we've been walking since Trump, once a week since Trump got in power. And there was a year when we dropped it because we both found the other unbearable. And I said, this is why you find me so irritating. I advise you not to take advice. Think for yourself. To me, that's a paradox. And it's why I have to be selective about what advice I take and don't take. I don't think all advice is worth taking. I don't think that all advice is even worth heeding. There's advice I'm not interested in even hearing anymore. And I think we're all like that. But the think for yourself thing, I command you to think for yourself. I'm in the realm where you doubt those things by pairing it with its opposite. Another example of that is you can't change anybody else. You can only change yourself. I'll buy that, but only if it's accompanied by you can't help but change other people. And you can't necessarily change yourself. I am not a robot. I can simply reprogram. That's not how it works. That's that logic game where you pretend that we're all just robots and we're figuring out the logical thing and can simply decide to be something better because it sounds better. I think that leads to way more arrogance than we acknowledge. I am the moral guide to how we should live our lives. That's the satisfaction. I don't need to walk that talk. I just need to declare it, and I feel good about myself. Okay, I've declared a lot. Oh my God, all these things I didn't get to. Okay, so thank you, Azrael Crowley, for identifying as learning. Play with those ideas. You don't have to agree with anything I say, but I am just so grateful to all of you for entertaining what I say. Can you imagine it's fun? And now I'm going off to a party I feel honored to get to go to. There's a local band of 33-year-olds who invite me, and not as an elder. They let me pretend for a while that I'm one of them. And so I'm going off to that. It's a pool party. I get a little shy around it. I'm certainly not going to take off all my clothes and expose them. I'm not putting on my swimming trunks and exposing them to my worn out upholstery. That would not be appropriate. Though I also am impressed by the younger generations, by how tolerant they are of the diversity of bodies. In my younger years, there was less tolerant. I'm really impressed with how people are recognizing we're not our bodies so much as they somehow seem less lookist than we were, and I really admire that about them. Okay, all right. I love y'all. I'll be back next week. I don't know when I will remember to put it up there. I'll maybe try to do that today, but it's weekly. I'll be back. My production values will be better and better. And thank you all for being here. I'll see you if you come back next time. All right. Bye-bye.